good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Vivek Atangani. We just started. I got your WhatsApp, and we started here. And thank you for joining. So Vivek was the first time when we started the series. Actually, we started the series with Professor Vivek Atangani. He's author of multiple books on pharmaceutical sales and marketing for the right from the medical reps to seniors. So he is there today as an audience. There are many panelists who were earlier in panel. Today is an audience I could see here. We started. Before we formally start, couple of things I would like to announce here as a housekeeping information, you can say. The number one, the first thing is that technology wise, sometimes because of the poor connectivity, poor internet, the video might go out like happened just now from my side, but it get reconnected again. Audio will get never cut. It will be always there. So we can continue talking over the audio. That is technology part. Number two, a disclaimer I would like to put here. All the panelists here present in this forum is not representing their company. They are at their personal, professional capacity. So all the opinion, the information, idea shared in this forum is their personal idea, their professional idea, not the idea and opinion of the company they represent. This is second. Number three is that we request all of you to participate, ask questions. In the beginning, we might talk ourselves a little bit more, but the kind of question I will see coming up, then I will put those questions to the moderator. We don't have any very presentation as such, but as and when something needed, we might show you some visuals as well. I see people joining. So again, welcome Pawan, Venkatesh, Professor Vivek has already there. Hariram, he was last time in panel. Is there? Good. So I think, so let me start with a very simple questions to the audience. By the time we'll ask some questions, then I come to the introduction to the panel. So right now, I'm waiting more people to join actually. So the questions to the audience is here in the form of poll. So I'm just starting a poll asking people to respond. Is your company a patient-centric company? This is a very basic questions. So if you are a consultant, to respond about one of your client. If you are working in a pharmaceutical company, please respond about your company. Be honest. You are not asking here neither your name nor your company name. So be honest so that we can have a feel about how we believe about the customer centricity. So I see the response is coming. Please respond in next 10 seconds. I'm going to close and show the response to all of you. Okay, so I'm ending the poll now. And you see the response, 54% participants says that, yeah, company they are working for is a customer centric. 27% no, and interestingly, 18% said can't say exactly. So what is that? May not be any concrete parameter to evaluate your companies now. So at this point, I'm pausing and I will just inform that at the end of this session, I will give you a self-diagnostic tool, a simple framework with 100 marks. You can do offline after this session actually. There are 10 questions. You respond those questions about your company. Again, be honest. No need to mention the company name as well. And then you will get a score. That a score will tell you your rating out of 100 marks. What is your approx rating for being a patient experience driven company? I'm more focused about patient experience there, not just customer centricity. So I see more people join here. Let me introduce to the panel. Then we'll proceed further. Maybe a couple of more poll and more questions. We encourage people to respond to questions as well. So as you see in this panel here. We have an international guest here. So thank you, Carlos, to joining this session. If you read his profile in LinkedIn or his website, then that at least I got inspired to do a lot of things in patient experience. I started patient experience very recently, though I was engaged with customer experience as such for physicians for almost 10 years now. So Carlos is the director general of a patient experience company. So I would request Carlos himself to tell us in more detail. I think that will be more justice to your profile than I am reading from the website or your profile and telling those things. So over to Carlos to brief about yourself, your work, what you have been doing in patient experience.
Thank you very much, Pranav, and thanks to the audience and thanks to my colleagues. I'm very honored to participate here. And about the Institute for Patient Experience, it exists since 2016. I was working before in human reproduction, in quality, and there I got acquainted with patient experience as it was in the US. No, so. I thought this would be a good tool for quality management, but then it was much broader than that. And the more and more we digged in that, the more we saw that experience was not only applicable to clinics and hospitals as a sort of marketing tool, but experience means knowledge. My experience is my knowledge. It is a kind of not scientific knowledge. We have two things. We have the truth, no, the truth that is constructed via evidence, and we have the reality, which is how people experience their diseases and their conditions and all the context. And here we have many data that can enrich evidence. So we thought, good, this is not only very interesting for hospitals and for hospital management, process improvement, better service. This is very, very interesting for pharmaceutical companies. So we started to work at the beginning very little in very small projects, but they have become bigger and bigger. And the more we dig into this and we use tools like patient-reported outcomes and patient-reported experience measures, we see how we can match these two worlds, the world of evidence and the world of real life. Both are real, no? But it's how you deal with knowledge. And this is a very powerful tool. So with it, we can help to launch effectively better the drugs. We can help the companies to address their messages to doctors so that they make patient-centric prescription. Later, we can dig into that. And we have not started yet, but with clinical trials, we have a first cooperation with a private hospital in Madrid. They have a community of patients in cancer, and we are making now first attempts to use patient centricity into a clinical trial. But I have to say honestly, we are not just beginning. We haven't a result on
that. Thanks, Carlos. The people who joined us here, I just saw in his website, he is already consulting the top 3 pharmaceutical company, UCB, GSK and Pfizer, and many more I believe is not featured there. So coming back to the pharma side, maybe many of you must be knowing Raja Reddy. He is here with 27 years of experience in Servier, and he had worked right from the bottom to the top, so had a very, very deep, wide experience in pharmaceutical marketing with a top, very scientific, well-respected pharmaceutical company, Serdia. Now it is called Servier. What I know from his friends about him is that he's a very simple guy, but have a very in-depth knowledge about what he believes on and very passionate about. So I request Raja Reddy himself to say about yourself to the audience.
Thanks, Pranav, Ratnakar ji, Carlos, and everyone who are attending the webcast. I'm Raja here. As Pranav already said, I work with Servier India, 27 years, and it's simply possible because it's a very employee-centric company, and in very ethical employee-centric company. And why am I saying this? Because I'm in my personal capacity, because I believe being employee-centric is the first step for an organization to be patient-centric. And 27 years, I've seen my journey, my thinking evolving. Last 6 or 7 years, I would say more thinking towards, although it is very easy to probably use the word patient centricity and patient experience, what I find challenging is the execution part. Sometimes it's not very clear, it's not white and black. So sometimes people don't understand what you're trying to say. You find it difficult to get your point across. So I must say we are there on path. We can discuss more about it. But my experience has been being employee-centric is the first step to be patient-centric or customer-centric.
Thank you, Raja. And the third panelist we have has an experience of both the side. He was heading strategy in Dr. Reddy's, where I met him 20 years back, exact 21 years back. We are completing 21 year of our association with Ratnakar. Both are moved from Dr. Reddy's now. So he is heading patient-centric department, rather I would say, in Tech Mahindra. And when I was talking to him, he was talking about the possibilities with the newer technology, machine learning and AI and so many things. He did his PhD, so he's a scholar and so many things. So let hear from him himself. Dr. Ratnakar, please.
Thanks, Pranav. Thanks for your nice introduction. Happy to note our association is almost 2 decades old. And yeah, I could actually also hear a couple of the participants who are near and dear to all of us. Thank you once again, all the participants. Carlos and Raja, thanks. And great honor to be part of this panel along with both of you. So as Pranav mentioned to all of you, I joined this industry, leaving the pharmaceutical industry at a juncture where there was a clear intersection between the biology and technology. That's about 7 years back when the whole thing is actually really getting to the steam. And happy that part of various areas of patient centricity, as Carlos mentioned, right from the stage of early clinical to the commercial. So I could see the application of technology in all these areas, and it would be glad for me to share some of my personal experiences in terms of how technology is trying to facilitate pharma from moving from a patient centricity on or a customer centricity onto the stakeholder centricity, which is embracing the entire stakeholder ecosystem in the healthcare and life sciences. So very glad to be in this panel and share my personal thoughts in terms of this customer centricity. Thanks, Pranav, once again.
Thank you, Dr. Ratnakar. Now I have the continuation of what Raja just said about patient centricity and employee centricity. So I have a questions again poll for the audience here. The question is that which among the following statement resonate the best with your idea of customer centricity? So you can see at your bottom of your video in your mobile, these questions is there. 3 statements. Which statements resonates best? Good. I see response coming. We'll wait for 20 seconds this time because the answer is long. Right now, tie is okay. Now it is changing. All 3 sort of answer is coming. Interesting. Good. I see people responding. So I would pause here and let me show the result to the everybody, the whole audience as well, is see the result here. Which one statement resonates the best with your idea of customer centricity? 35% people responded that offering the best product at the cheapest price with full customer service to all the customers. Great. 41% people says that honoring all the requests of all the customers as quickly as possible in a best possible manner. And the minority 23% says that getting more share of wallet of the most profitable individual customers now and in the future. So very diverse opinion. I think going forward, somewhere we need to deep dive more into that. May not be in this session, possibly in next another session we'll deep dive further on that, what exactly patient centricity is. But here I would like to quote Professor Peter Feder, who is a professor of marketing in Wharton School of Business. His definition is that getting more share of the customer's wallet today and tomorrow. Actually, he just published the third book on customer centricity. The first book was published long back, then second book 2-3 years back, and this May he just published the third book. I got a complimentary copy from him yesterday evening. I have not read it. So the definition what it says that there is nothing called the customer. Customer has a name. You know individual customer, who is customer. Do you know who is contributing how much? So he has been working in a concept called lifetime value. And now he has a full established concept on lifetime value of a customer, future value of a customer, and how the organization should align the resources to serve only those high lifetime value profitable customer. And maybe attrition of customer is not good, we believe, but he says that sometimes you need to take a call. You don't want to serve certain set of customers who are not profitable. So I'm not going deeper into that. Let us come to the patient experience here. So now I'm coming to Carlos. Having briefly understood about the customer centricity, now we are bringing our focus to customer experience, or either a little generic. First customer experience, then patient experience. So Carlos, how you define, or can you help us to understand customer experience first and then maybe precisely patient experience?
Yes, I think it's two sides of the same coin, because at the end we all are or will be patients someday. On the other hand, when we use a drug, we are patients, but we are customers too. So we have two kinds of motivation. One is our disease, and the other, as I think the audience says, there are questions of delivery, there are questions of price, there are questions of even image. No, think of for example, on some iconic drugs like aspirin. No, it's over 120 years old, and it's an icon. No? So this is in our brains too. So the difference, I would say, if we are, is how we are, it's a question of identity and how we are treated. We can be treated as customers. This means only our, let's say, interests are served and our desires and wishes, which means price, service, the quality, things we can use in a McDonald's, when we buy a car or when we buy a drug, no? But if we are patients, we go in a more deeper layer of our personality. And then we don't only have wishes, we have needs. And these needs are, of course, have to do with the disease. They are of physical and biological nature, but they are also of how we are treated in a hospital. It's also our emotions, because when we have a disease, think now of coronavirus, how many people have anxiety and so on, but think of people with cancer. where they feel guilty because they've smoked. They feel that they might die, and they change all their priorities. This has also a social dimension, not only an emotional, a social, how I relate to my family. Families get broken or they get united with cancer or with COPD, for instance. If something is not understood, please interrupt me. You have people in cancer that they are, I don't know in India, but in Spain, they are dismissed. They get laid off on the street. It's not legal, but it's done. So your identity as because you're I don't know, a lawyer or a successful manager gets destroyed because of the disease. And then you have what we call the symbolic dimension of patient experience. People at the beginning say symbolic, what is that? This is not so important, but imagine, for instance, asthma and COPD patients, we have been researching, they don't think inhalators are medicine because in their minds, inhalators, medicine is only pills. So this is very deep, and this marks their decisions, how they behave towards adherence, for instance. If you think of families, women are underdiagnosed because they are caregivers of their families. They don't want to be cared about. So they don't want to give up this road. They don't go to the doctor. Another thing of social identity is smoking. Smokers with COPD, they think, they have, of course, their addiction, they have their psychological addiction, but they have another kind of emotional addiction to tobacco because they say, it's my friend, it's my lover. Cigarettes were there when I felt in love. Cigarettes were there in a heavy moment of my life. And so if you want to make a discourse on how to change habits, you don't have to tell them, don't smoke. You have to use another approach. And if you know all that data about patients, all these insights, and you get not only qualitative, but a good quantitative work with data, with platforms, and so on, then you know the numbers of that. And then you can make the right messages for the doctors how to address these things. And so we don't go only to price, to positioning. My company is better. Imagine I don't. Bayer is better than a generic. Things like that are in our minds as customers. We get into really deep into the patient and can open their hearts to be open for our product. Because we are not only telling them it's better or it's evidence is good, we can link this product to very practical things of their life, like to start to imagine now with start to move again, to go out again, to work again, to see their nephews again, things like that. If you find this, these are the buttons to open hearts. Patient experience is the knowledge that opens heart of the people, and customer experiences, how you treat well, how you put a good service, a good price, and both are good, no? But patient experience is getting deeper.
Good. Thank you very much. So let me come to the other side, the pharmaceutical side. Raja, how do you see for a pharmaceutical company, what exactly patient experience mean? Are we really bothered about patient experience?
Yeah. Pranav, before I begin in my opinion or understanding, I would like to disagree when firms start looking at a wallet of the patient or the share of the customer to decide their strategies. Because in my opinion, when you speak about patient centricity, it's about being more. It's like part of a family, and we don't look at share of wallets in family. I know, as I said in my statement before, nothing is white or black. It's contextual in nature, but money alone doesn't determine things. Now, I would say pharma has been patient-centric or patient experience-oriented for a long time, but the challenge has been whether it is in value creation, value execution, or value delivery, or value capture. So in some places, it's possible. I'll give you an example. My favorite molecule has been insulin. Insulin some time ago was, as you know, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners would give insulin. Patient couldn't take insulin himself. He was dependent on doctors. But then there came a company which innovated insulin pen. So what is insulin pen? Insulin pen is nothing but taking away power from the doctor and the nurse practitioner who was determining the patient's schedule and giving the power to patient. And that for me is a very patient-centric, patient experiences or experience-oriented kind of approach, which helped the company not only to create value for everybody in the ecosystem, deliver value and capture that value. Now, the second example that comes to me where patient becomes more important, equally important for the company is the Tylenol example, which is a case study for crisis communication. Most of you, some of us may know in 1980s, there was this big Tylenol case where somebody took out Tylenol capsules and they put cyanide capsules and replaced them, to be precise, in 6 grocery shops. Yet the company's response shows for the first time from being, they become very proactive. In fact, at that time, Tylenol contributed 33% of Johnson & Johnson's turnover. And at that time, the CEO, keeping the patient in the mind, of course, the product, he wanted to do 2 things: save the product, save the company, save the product and save the patient. He withdrew Tylenol. Even afterwards, national recall took place, and even afterwards, the company provided support to these people, although the company was not at fault. The last thing, if you look at pharmaceutical research traditionally, it's about addressing patient experience. For example, look at a particular class of antihypertensives. We know now there is a particular sect of antihypertensives which are used more in India based on that the patient doesn't develop side effect with an X product. So I think pharma has been patient-centric, but it's not purely white and black. A lot of times in value creation, we could have been patient experience oriented, but the delivery and the capture become a challenge. So not all of times it has been easy. India also has been at the forefront. You take the examples of the innovation of the local companies. Right in 1990, we were talking about fixed dose combinations. Of course, we didn't have the evidence, and that's not probably the right way to go about. Now the ESC guideline speaks about fixed dose antihypertensive combinations. So India in certain sects has been way ahead. Certain areas in terms of compliance, in terms of clinical trials, evidence-based approach we are learning, we'll reach there. And this is my opinion about patient experience.
Thanks, Raja. I think the Peter Feder's the word share of wallet is really very provocative. If you hear him at this age also, so passionately he talked about. I will try to bring him in this forum maybe next or after that. I have been working with him. I know him for at least 6 years now. Anyway, that's a different thing. We'll come to Dr. Karunakar. Before that, let me put a point here. When the words are simple, like patient and experience, centricity and customer, everybody believe that what I believe is the only way. They don't, sometimes we forget to see the need for seeing the other's perspective. So what I'm going to do before coming to Dr. Ratnakar here, going just to show you 2 slides, just objective is to align ourselves about what the authority in patient experience thinks about patient experience and how it is different than one stand alone experience of a patient. So the Berlin Institute, they have been engaged with patient experience pretty long years. They says that the sum of all interactions, it is not about one, shaped by an organization's culture that influence patient perceptions across the continuum of care is called patient experience. So it might look like something theoretical, but actually I personally very much like this definition, because this talks about not one instance of a bad or good experience of a patient in a hospital or with a pharma product. It is the sum of all. In unlike in India, US, there is an organizations called HCAPS. What they do, they do survey of the different hospitals and give some sort of index of the patient experience in that hospital. So they also come up with the some sort of scope of patient experience. So I put this second slide of patient experience from them. It says that patient experience encompasses the range of interactions that patients have with the healthcare system, including their care from health plans. So insurance comes here, and from the doctors, nurses, and the staff in hospital, physicians practice, and other healthcare facilities. So here I'm ending here. I don't want to be bookish, so that was just wanted to bring the common understanding about patient experience. It is not the one-time experience. It is the entire life journey of a patient every time, driven by the culture of the company and the practice, be it pharmaceutical company or a healthcare organization. Now I will come on this context of the definition to Dr. Karunakar. I'm still sorry, Dr. Ratnakar. How are you supporting a pharmaceutical companies with the novel technology and the concept and the execution leg in the patient front, to helping the pharmaceutical company to connect, impact, deliver value to the patient beyond the physician's interaction or beyond the physician's cabin?
Sure. I would like to continue from where Raja was talking about the insulin example and how the patients are actually getting more knowledgeable, more informed. I think the biggest innovation of the 21st century is a great intersection between the biology and technology. That's where I think the patients are no more relying only on physicians to get the information, which was hitherto the only source of information for them. But I think gone are the days. Technology has actually completely overshadowed that. And that's where I think the patients are becoming more and more knowledgeable, more and more informed, and more and more decisive in terms of their disease management or what you mentioned about continuum of care. If you look at this technology becoming a kind of an integral part of the entire pharmaceutical space, we have examples where it clearly shows how some of these technological interventions are reshaping the entire treatment of care. I will give you an example. I think all of us are familiar with the platforms like Patients Like Me. Today, they boast to have a patient pool of over 500,000 who are actually trying to get the entire patient pool of a common disease area on a single platform, and making even the lives of physicians more comfortable by providing them a kind of a real world evidence. If you look at how the technology today is bringing in, the best example is variables. Okay, the variables are actually trying to bridge to gain that gap, and it's actually giving them a kind of instant data for the physicians and the caregivers, and managing the kind of care which the patients are looking at. Second important, which you mentioned earlier in the talk, about how technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning are reshaping the patient experience. There are enough number of examples where today the patients are getting informed decisions instantly on every platform they are familiar with, including that of Facebook. Everyone is today very comfortable on Facebook. Today, patient experience platforms are actually on the Facebook as the platform, and a artificial intelligence led chatbot is available for them to get the required medical education, required the counseling, required the adverse event management, and all the areas with respect to the treatment of care is provided using the AI-led chatbots. I'd also like to bring in element of blockchain. Okay, even that is making the life of the physicians as well as patients much more comfortable. So all these technologies, which in our industry call that as new age technologies, is making the patients more informed and more richer in terms of their experience. And the pharmaceutical industries, I think that's what the question you asked, are getting more and more getting connected to the patients using this technology as one of the medium. So, in nutshell, what it was only the physician who was giving the information to them, or the pharmaceutical companies providing the patient educational material to the patients. I think today's technology is actually bringing that element which is making the patients more and more comfortable, and it is also addressing one important element which all of us today are grappling with in the pharma industry, which is treatment non-adherence. I think that is an important element. Today, pharma is trying to innovate in various interventions to address that larger need. And I can happily and comfortably say, with clear data points, that technology intervention is addressing that larger need of treatment non-adherence. And it's not necessary only for the chronic and the people on a long-term treatment. Even for people with the short-term treatment, the best example is antimicrobial resistance coming in with the shorter treatment therapy. Even for them, these interventions are making a lot of difference.
Thanks, Dr. Ratnakar. So let's do some reality checkup. So I'm putting a questions here on context of what Dr. Ratnakar said. The question is very straightforward. Are you using any kind of patient connect program, app, or any sort of tools in your company? This question is for the audience. Let's see how many companies are using, at least from the cohort of what we have today here. Oh, uh, next 10 seconds I will wait and then we'll publish the poll.
Sorry, while the poll is running, I have I don't know if it's my side, but I can hear all of you, but except Dr. Ratnakar, and I feel very sorry for that.
So happy to see that Dr. Ratnakar, 57% are using, at least the people who are here, some sort of technology to connect the patient. May not be high-end chatbot, but at least some app or something they are using that. That's a good sign of thing. Now I'll come to Carlos, to you. What are the see in India? We tried so many types of technology app or in different form. Somehow, even my experience was not always good. Uh, the adoption rate is very poor. So I'm extending the same questions now. How do you see use of technology in engaging the patient from the pharmaceutical company in Europe? What are the silver lining there, which in India we can copy it or adopt it?
Well, for instance, now we have started a pro bono project in the case of coronavirus, and this works very well. But we have started a patient community. First, we made the research, what were the needs of corona patients, and they told us that they had lots of psychological problems. The information that they had, they were over-informed. They didn't know what to believe. They told us a lot about stress at home, that also the isolation patterns were not clear. They told us also that they need to talk to peers, not only to their family. So with that, we're looking to what technologies could we use, because we use a lot of big data, we use a lot of business intelligence, we know a lot of patient platforms, and at the end we found one called Patientalia that is exactly for that, for making patient communities, not just platforms where they can exchange, they can talk among each other, but it's moderated by doctors or nurses or physiotherapists or psychologists, so you get a seriosity on that. It's not like they make the WhatsApp groups or they get in Twitter or in any other platform. And with that, what we have seen with that is that you get two benefits. Once you have a big population, now it's working for since 2 days, and we have already over 1,000 people there. And second, their conversations are very meaningful. You can get a lot of insights out of them, not only what the study says, but what their actual needs are, their actual worries, and then you can organize this community in making webinars, in making training, in placing not the product, but placing you, the company, with the solutions you can hear out of the conversation. So this kind of technology is very powerful. If you link this with artificial intelligence to analyze the discourses and to get the insight, and with business intelligence, then you get really very good information out of that. And we are very happy with the results of that. We have seen also that it's not a question of the technology itself, but it's a question of the questions you make. If you don't listen before to the patients, if you don't make the qualitative work before, if you're not in touch with the associations, if you don't build communities, then the results you get are very poor because you make stupid questions to the system. So what I was saying at the beginning, that maybe was a bit abstract, of the world of truth and the world of reality. If you get out the insights of the reality, then you can use them to make science and to make and to get evidence on how the drugs are used on the context. No, for instance, in a case we had with in Portugal, this was the company said, "Oh, we are not selling." Well, I'm not going to say the drug enough because it's confidential. We are not selling of that enough, and it's a question that our competition is really very good with the with the hospital pharmaceutics. And after making this research with the patients and then using also the data, we saw that they have neglected their main users that were the elderly that were isolated in the countryside. And they said for this disease, for this particular condition, well, it was a condition linked to cancer. And they said, "Oh, I am going to die of cancer. Why should I care about this disease?" And it was not, so they were not informed. Second, nurses had not been involved. While doctors make the prescription, nurses are those that make the magic, let me use the word, of making the people adherent to the medicine. Third, these people were isolated in the countryside. So if they had a cancer and they had a severe condition, they could not go to the pharmacy. So the insights told us about the problems, data told us about the magnitude, and then we could work out a solution with the patients and with the pharma company and with the doctors and with the nurses, which was to make a system that they could order the drug to the pharmacy online by a simple system. So we had the qualitative research, we had the data, how many people are affected, where are they, in which particular areas, and then the solution that worked out was optimal because we knew for how many people and where.
Mm-hmm. So, taking the discussion further, though as Dr. Ratnakar said, a lot of tools, technology are available, but we saw just now with this quick survey also, the usage has to take up. I think not taken. Maybe our brand managers, the ground person who are actually required to work on the patient experience for their brand, for the therapy as a whole, they might need some sort of, there is some sort of inertia I personally see. So my questions to now changing the order here, so to Raja, because you are leading a team of brand managers, marketing managers. So do you see that is there some need for the retraining the brand managers in technology front, or maybe even the more basic coming to the customers front also, so that the whatever technology is available uh, can be adopted faster in pharmaceutical companies?
Um, uh, Although technology has the power to amplify, collate, collect data, and react rapidly, for me, it's not a question of having technology or no technology. Technology is not the issue here. The issue is the thought process where patient becomes a center for the thinking pattern. Professor Vivek was sharing something, an NHS statement where it said, no decision about me without me. But I have a different opinion. I do not agree with that. Because a lot of times, neither a patient or customer exactly knows what do they need. What do they need? So to substantiate that, let me give you two examples. In an All India Institute of Medical Sciences, the Heart Failure Clinic, run by Professor Sandeep Seth, they've made a massive advancement, and they have captured it in reducing the mortality and morbidity of the patients by using no great technology, but SMS, a discharge checklist, which is a toolkit, and the patient is trained once in a week, if I recall correctly, to give 3 parameters: his weight, blood pressure, and heart rate. No great technology, and this we are speaking about very poor patients. And they have seen, compared to the patients who were given this, compared to the patients who didn't get that, they seem to perform better. Hospitalization was reduced. Another example, and in design theory, this is a very famous example. Take a CT scan experience. GE created one of the most powerful machines. When the designer one day went into the children's hospital in US, the lead anesthesia, there was this radiologist who was saying half the children has to be anesthetized and they undergo a very traumatic experience. And the person saw it from the experience of the child. He realized for a child, it was very scary to go into a CT scan room. So here there was no technology, but thinking from the child's viewpoint, where they redesigned into a play, a game, or an experience where, for example, it was a Disney experience with pirates, where just by changing that approach, what happened was there was a dramatic improvement in how a number of patients who could successfully, here in this case children, could complete the CT scan. So my point is, it is never about technology or not having technology. It's just about the patient. And typically, if you look at Indian patients for chronic diseases who are around, let's say, 50 or 60 years old, coming from the backgrounds we come from, some of them are not very tech savvy. But Indians, as we say, are very smart. We have the local intelligence. So we find our way in terms of either from the community, friends, peer group, trying to get a better experience. So for me, patient experience, although technology has the power to amplify the experience, but it is never about technology or having technology or not having technology. But I do see a trigger event like the current one we are going would accelerate the adoption of technology to alleviate some of the problems what we are facing now.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Actually, technology enabler, not the or a person the element who will do that. So meantime, let me put some of the beautiful remarks which he made by here. Rajsekhar writes that how to capture patient experience or insight in the absence of patient communities, advocacy group, and restrictions for the pharma companies to reach the patient. I think some of the practices I see happening in other countries may not be very popular in India. Uh, could be so many issues because of that. It is not there. Like patient advocacy is hardly heard in India. There are few, but not practiced by most of the typical Indian company or any company actually for that matter. But I agree with you. You can't capture the experience. So in the patient experience or customer experience, we have a one element out of six element. We call it VOC, voice of customer, or you can tell it here as a voice of patient. So you need to have a mechanism to capture the voice of patient at every stage. And good thing is that a technology and the different strategy enables you. What Raja just said, it is not about the technology, about the people, the mindset. Are you putting the patient in the center? If you are able to align the whole team, sales, marketing, and maybe CFT team, cross-functional team also, to put the patient at the center, and then you get a solutions, a bunch of solutions to enable you, even in the absence of certain law and certain supporting law, to hear, listen patient's voice. And but nevertheless, I agree with this point that patient voice has to be tracked. Then only you can know that the experience is good, bad, or worse. Then only, unless until you measure that, you can't improve upon. I don't know, Mr. Carlos, if you are here, then I will
Yes,
ask.
I am here. Sorry, I
Okay.
had some technical problems.
No problem. So, taking these questions a little bit further, we are talking about we don't track the patient experience. We don't know whether patient is happy or not happy. We don't have practice of having advocacy in India. Patient advocacy in India prevalent. There are a few. Uh, how do you suggest to pharmaceutical company to have a metric measurement of patient experience? Because unless until you measure, you can't improve upon. So what are the tools and techniques to measure? How to measure? It could be technology, it could be beyond technology also. So we would like to you to tell us.
The question is to Rayan or to me or to Dr. Pravan?
Yeah, question is to Carlos. You.
Okay, we work a lot with patient-reported outcomes and patient-reported experiences measures. There are more metrics in patient experience, but at the beginning, I mean, in pharmaceutical industry, for hospitals, it's a bit different. At the beginning, you asked what is the difference between customer and patient experience. If we work with a patient experience approach that is more oriented to customer satisfaction, then we would use surveys, satisfaction surveys, NPS. But if we go really deep into what is the outcome of what we do, I would say patient-reported experience outcomes, these are validated scales internationally. We have developed a couple of them, for example, for respiratory home therapies. And where they didn't exist, incidentally. And then you can connect this with patient-reported outcomes measures. And then if you have a technology, what you can do, and this is with a simple technology, an app, for instance, you can combine the reported outcomes, the reported experiences, and if you feed it with the clinical outcomes, then you have wonderful, because then you have how the experience has an impact on the reported outcome and how it has an impact, if it has at all, not in every case, an impact on the clinical outcome. And this, I think this is the most powerful solution, I would say, because it's based on evidence, and it's how you make all this world of reality that is made of belief, situation, context, and so on. It's made down to numbers, and you can quantify it. and you can have a good approach. If you are good in also in your research, qualitative research, and if you use an ethnographical approach, and you use sociological methods combined with economy, with medical, and so you can at the end make indicators and labels that can be used and validated as patient-reported experience measures.
Good. That was the question also from Professor Sridhar Guda. I think you are from Indian Institute of Management, Calicut. Yesterday, one of the panelists was talking about you. So, Professor Sridhar, good afternoon. I've never met you, but I've heard from Raja a lot about you. So I think your question has been responded already by Carlos. There are a couple of metrics, as many as I think 10, 20 different types. The most common is NPS, but so many metrics are there to measure at a different, a specific touch point. So it is not a one matrix which will fit at all the touch points, all serve you everywhere. As Carlos says, some qualitative, some quantitative. So you have to plan based on the which touch point you would like to address and measure and then improve on that. So you have to plot. There is a tool and technology. There is a software available where it will help you to really plot the patient journey and show you totality to really figure out where the patient experience is going below normal and where there is a wow factor. So how to work upon that. So there are tools and techniques. We need to learn and start working on that. I think academia can play a big role in doing MDP for the industry managers, brand managers, to train them such metrics and such concept to drive the patient centricity, patient experience in this experience economy. The current economy is called as experience economy, not about healthcare as a whole economy. It's called as experience economy. Now,
may I add something, if you allow me? Sorry. I think if you are talking about hospitals, then you have to think that patient experience is not just a nice thing to have, it's a process. And the process, and because our experience is that in hospitals, the people say, a nurse thought that the waiting times are too long, and let's solve this. But if you go with a methodical approach, then you have how to capture patient experience, how to transform it, and then you think on how to measure, because the insights of the capturing and the outcomes of transforming gives you the measures you will need.
That's right. I think as you said, it is a system, actually not the just one incidences we're talking about. I don't know what Carlos used, but I as a member of CXPA, Customer Experience Professional Association, we use this strategy, 6 element of the strategy to help the organizations, whether it's healthcare organizations or pharmaceutical companies. So I just put this slide here. The first thing what Raja was also talking about, the culture, the patient-centered culture has to be there. And then the question was for voice of patient or voice of customer. If you are able to track that and then use the design thinking methodology to develop really human-centered innovation solutions for your patient, and you put their metrics and measurement, and of course ROI. And ROI, when I see, it is not the sales outcome, it is the sales is the lag outcome. Actually, lead outcomes should be measured here in different. There are plenty of different tool which is underdeveloped, developed at a different maturity level, which can be used. And finally, if the entire organizations adopt that with accountability, then only patient experience or customer centricity strategy really give dividend to organizations. So coming back to Dr. Ratnakar here, Dr. Ratnakar, is the technology company also offer the metrics to to really gauge the whether needle is moving north or south.
Absolutely. I think when we actually discussed about this enormous amount of data generated by using all the technology interventions, that is where it actually leads into different performance metrics, especially from what we were discussing right now about the patient centricity. Okay, right from the clinical trial adoption, at an early clinical trial, even after the commercial model, different metrics are actually being put in place because one is with these metrics, the beauty of data analytics, as most of us are aware of, it need not necessarily only give you the exact forecast, I mean, a realistic number, but also it gives you kind of a predictive model. So that way, it actually solves both the problems. It also gives you the current. It also gives you the futuristic way. So that way, both the aspects are well defined by using different analytical tools. By adopting this, the real world data. So absolutely, there are a number of metrics which are possible.
Thank you, Dr. Ratnakar. So it is already 6 o'clock. So we'll be closing that. So with the final remark from each of the panelists here. Before that, let me put some of the remark made here. It is actually one question from K. Harinam is that how many organizations in India have a written overarching goal or vision for patient centricity? Sir, as being a former MD of a big company in India, you know that this is not a question, this is a remark, and I think we need to sensitize that for a written vision for having patient at the center of the care. That is what need to be put by all of us wherever we can impact, in whatever way we can impact. Some of the question, Rashmi, I'm not taking your question because it's specific to the not the customer experience or patient experience. This question is for the user experience or patient safety. Some questions I see here is actually regarding the patient safety. So I'm not taking those questions here. Now, for Raja from Amit, we have a question. Can you please share the example of patient-centric brand strategy? So this question is for the strategy, Raja, not for an example of a brand. So can you quickly share that along with your final word to the group on patient experience?
There's only one thing I say. It's very challenging to say that in a very short period of time. As I've given the example of insulin before is very apt. What I would say is for brand managers, we need to be aware of the fact that there is something like a puzzle and there is something like a mystery. Puzzle requires a lot of data. That's where technology comes in. Mystery cannot be solved with data. It can only be framed. And mystery comes from understanding experiences. And this is where patient experience comes in. And how can you understand that? How can you develop that? Very two simple things. Put yourself in the shoes of the patient. Or the second thing is be on the front line. Be on the front line where your reps are working. Put yourself in patient shoes, your rep shoes. You will get better insights. So use the puzzle, the technology, the data to give a data-driven approach. If it's a mystery, you need to use your own experience and insight to solve that. This is all I can say in a very short period of time.
Dr. Ratnakar, your final comments, then we'll come to finally to conclude with Carlos.
Yeah. So I just want to bring in two examples to say how the patient experience is enriched. So one of the example I would like to pick up is from a hospital in UK, where they actually find a problem for the patients to adopt physiotherapy. So what they did is the hospital has actually come out with a unique proposition of using gamification as an enabler for them to actually have the continuous physiotherapy for those patients. The second example I would like to bring in is again from St. John's Hospital. Okay, so what they had a patient who is actually a child suffering from a rare disease, and for that child, one of the passions for the child is to have a horse riding. So they use AR/VR technology and gave them a kind of a stimulation for the child and had the child a feel of riding actually a horse. So the patient experience, okay, enriching it is completely from a patient centricity, but giving them the kind of right kind of impetus so that the end goal is actually achieved. So I just wanted to drive home how the patient centricity is arrived using some of these enablers.
Thank you, Dr. Ratnakar. So, for Carlos, we have a question actually from Devdutt. He asks that to explain Prem and Prom. I don't know enough time to explain. Yeah.
That's, I asked in the chat if you were acquainted with that. Very briefly, Prom, patient-reported outcome measures is, for instance, a scale of pain. Very easy to understand. From 1 to 10, how much is this pain, no? And or a scale of quality of life questionnaire. This would be a PROM, or a questionnaire on functionality of arm movement when we are making physiotherapy. Okay, these are PROMs. There are thousands of them. They are validated and they are very useful. And PREMs. So with PROM we see let's say the biological, physical, and let's say mental part of the disease. With PREMs we see the experience part. So some of them are very simple, like a simple satisfaction scale, or the HCAPS questionnaires they use in the US. And others are very ad hoc. For instance, in home respiratory therapies, for example, how does the relationship to the pneumologist and to the therapist shape your experience, and how is it related, for instance, to your quality of sleep? So the questionnaires, they are already in the literature, most of them. Some of them have to develop. For instance, now for coronavirus, there are no ones. But the advantage is that it's, for example, if you Google at ICHOM, ICHOM, you have many that are being developed, and in many countries there are libraries of PROMs and PREMs. The NHS has a good one. There is also a good one in Spain, in BiblioPro, but they are in Spanish. So there are many sources of them. If you go to PubMed and Google, you will see a lot of them.
Good. Thank you, Carlos. I think this was a wonderful you joining this call. So as I promised that at the end I will give you a tool. So it's very simple to remember: acpd.live/CX, customer experience diagnosis, CXD. If you type in your mobile acpd.live/CXD, you will get a questionnaire, respond the question, and you will get the score at the end of that. Where do you your company stands in 100-point scale as per customer centricity is concerned. And this will also give you some idea about what are the factors which are getting accounted for truly being the patient-centric or patient-centric organization, patient-centric company. All right. With this, thank you very much. I thanks all the panelists, Raja Reddy, Dr. Ratnakar, and Carlos. So joining us together, I think we have learned a lot. I'm sorry many of the questions I could not take up because of the time paucity. We'll share this video recording to the participants and the people to whom we have missed it actually here. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks to you. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Carlos, I will connect you later on over the phone. Yeah.
Yes, I would be very happy to talk to you, and also to Ryan.
Thank you, Carlos.
I learned a lot. It was very, very interesting.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.